Birthdays were never a big deal to me. I didn't like the attention, the candles, or the make-a-wish moment. But my friends insisted that this year would be different. I'd just gotten a big promotion at work, my relationship seemed stable, and they claimed I deserved a proper celebration. So I let them take over the planning. I thought it would just be another night of laughter, drinks, and a little too much cake. The restaurant's private room was decorated with string lights and gold balloons spelling out "Happy Birthday." People milled about, holding champagne glasses, conversations blending into a pleasant hum. The scent of roasted garlic and fresh bread floated in from the kitchen. For the first hour, it was perfect. I was genuinely happy, maybe even relaxed. Then I noticed her. She stood near the far wall, just outside the circle of light, her posture too rigid, her gaze fixed on me. She wasn't talking to anyone, not even holding a drink. I scanned the room, trying to place her. Was she a friend of a friend? Someone from work? No, I would have remembered those eyes. Before I could decide whether to approach her, she moved. With deliberate steps, she crossed the room, weaving between guests like she knew exactly where she was going. My pulse quickened, though I couldn't explain why. When she reached me, she didn't smile, didn't say "Happy Birthday." Instead, she slipped a small white envelope into my hand and leaned in so close I felt her breath on my ear. "Read this when you're alone," she whispered. "And please, be careful." Her voice was soft, but there was something urgent, almost desperate in her tone. I froze, the envelope suddenly heavy in my palm. Before I could speak, she stepped back, gave me a single nod, and disappeared into the crowd. I turned, scanning the room for her, but she was gone. Just gone. I must have stood there too long because my best friend, Melissa, walked over and asked, "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile, shoved the envelope into my bag, and told her I was fine. But my mind wasn't on the party anymore. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People sang, clinked glasses, and made toasts I barely heard. My eyes kept darting to the door, half expecting her to return. But she didn't. Later, as I blew out the candles, I made a wish without thinking. Please let this be nothing. I didn't know it yet, but that envelope would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. By the time I got home, the buzz of the party had worn off. My apartment was quiet. The only sound the soft hum of the fridge and the faint traffic noise from the street below. I kicked off my heels, hung my coat, and for a moment considered ignoring the envelope until morning. But something about that woman's eyes, that mixture of urgency and fear, wouldn't let me sleep without knowing what was inside. I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope resting in front of me like a loaded gun. My fingers hovered over it, hesitant. I didn't even know her name. What if this was some elaborate prank? Or worse, what if I was about to open something I could never unsee? I took a deep breath, slid a finger under the flap, and tore it open. Inside, there was no letter, just a folded sheet of paper and a small black USB drive. The paper was creased from being handled too much, and the ink on it looked slightly smudged. I unfolded it. There were only 8 words, written in sharp, hurried handwriting. "Play this, then decide who you can trust." My throat tightened. I stared at the USB drive in my palm, the weight of it unnatural for something so small. 1,000 questions ran through my mind. Who was she? Why give this to me? And what exactly was I about to see? Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the trash. Another part, the bigger part, was gnawing with curiosity and a creeping sense of dread. I plugged it into my laptop. The screen flickered for a moment, and a single video file appeared, titled simply, "Watch Me." I clicked it. The video began abruptly, no introduction, no sound at first. Then, faintly, the hum of a camera microphone picked up. The picture was grainy, filmed from what looked like a hidden angle, maybe through a window or from behind a partially closed door. It took me a few seconds to register what I was seeing. It was my living room. The exact same couch, the same rug, the same crooked picture frame on the wall. Only I wasn't in it. Someone else was. Two people. One of them was my husband. The other. My stomach turned as I leaned closer to the screen. It was Melissa, my best friend. They were sitting too close, whispering, laughing in that low, intimate way that told me this wasn't the first time they'd done it. The video cut off after just 30 seconds, but the damage was already done. My hands were trembling, my breath uneven. I yanked the USB out of the laptop, half afraid the video would somehow keep playing. Who filmed this? Why give it to me now? And what did the woman mean by decide who you can trust? I didn't know it then, but the USB was only the first blow. What was coming next would be far worse. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the grainy footage replayed in my mind. Those 30 seconds looping endlessly, my husband leaning in, Melissa's smile, their knees almost touching. It didn't matter that there was no kiss caught on camera. It was enough. Too much. By 3 a.m., I had convinced myself it could be fake, a deep fake video, a cruel prank. Maybe Melissa had enemies. Maybe I did. But the angle of the shot, the way my husband shifted his weight on the couch exactly the way I'd seen him do 1,000 times. No, it felt too real. I needed to know where the footage came from. I opened the video again and froze it frame by frame, looking for clues. That's when I noticed something I had missed before. In the top right corner of the screen, a faint reflection on the window. A figure. The outline of someone holding a camera, half hidden behind the curtain inside my living room. My stomach twisted. Whoever filmed this hadn't been outside. They'd been in my home. I grabbed my phone and started to dial the police. But then I stopped. If this was real, why didn't they take more footage? Why give it to me in the middle of my own birthday party? A sick thought hit me. Maybe they were still watching. I walked quietly to the living room, every step heavy with dread. The curtains were drawn, but I felt it, that almost physical sensation of being observed. I yanked the fabric open. Nothing. Still, my eyes darted to the corners of the ceiling, to the bookshelves, to the lamp by the couch. That's when I saw it. A tiny black dot on the bookshelf, just above my eyeline. A hidden camera. My hands shook as I reached for it, but before I could pull it down, my phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number. I answered, my voice trembling. A man's voice, low, almost a whisper, said, "You're running out of time. Check under the floorboard beneath your bed." The line went dead. I stood frozen in the living room, the weight of the man's words pressing down on me like a physical force. Check under the floorboard beneath your bed. The rational part of me screamed to call the police, but another, darker part whispered that whoever had left that camera, and whoever had called me, might be closer than I thought. If I involved the police now, it could scare them into disappearing before I knew the truth. So I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away to whoever could still be watching. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the shadows deeper. Inside my bedroom, I shut the door and locked it. The moonlight spilling through the window painted pale streaks across the floor. I dropped to my knees beside the bed and stared at the old hardwood. At first, nothing stood out, but then my fingers brushed over a single plank that was just slightly looser than the rest. I slid my nails under the edge and pried. It lifted with a slow, dry creak. Underneath was a small cloth-wrapped bundle. My hands shook as I pulled it out and unfolded the fabric. Inside, was a stack of photographs. The first one made my stomach lurch. It was me, sitting at my desk at work, completely unaware the picture had been taken. The next showed me in the grocery store, picking out fruit. Another, in my kitchen, pouring coffee in my robe. And then, there was one of my daughter, taken outside her school. My breath came fast and shallow. These weren't just stolen moments. They were a record. Someone had been watching us for months, maybe years. At the bottom of the stack was a single newer photo. My husband, shaking hands with a man I didn't recognize. The stranger had a tattoo across his knuckles. 4 black letters. Keep. There was something else in the cloth. A small USB drive taped to the inside corner. I peeled it off, my mind spinning with questions. I was about to plug it into my laptop when I heard it. A soft creak, like weight shifting on the hallway floorboards outside my locked door. I froze. Another step. And then, silence. I reached for my phone, but before I could unlock it, a text lit up my screen. It was from the same unknown number as before. They know you found it. My fingers trembled so badly I could barely hold the phone. They know you found it. The words burned into my brain. Whoever had been watching me was close enough, right now, to know exactly what I was doing. The USB drive felt heavy in my palm, almost like it was pulsing with its own heartbeat. I knew I shouldn't look at it. If they were already in the house, plugging it into my laptop might give them more time to get to me. But I had to know. I shoved the plank back into place, slid the bundle under the bed, and quietly crossed the room to my desk. Every movement felt amplified, like the sound of my own breathing might give me away. I plugged the USB into my laptop. At first, nothing happened. Then a single folder appeared. No name, just an empty white icon. Inside, there were 3 video files, all dated within the last month. The first one opened to grainy night vision footage of my own bedroom. I could see myself sleeping. A dark figure moved in the corner of the frame, slow, deliberate. The shape bent down toward me, so close their face nearly touched mine. But the shadows kept them hidden. The second video was worse. It showed my daughter's room. She was lying in bed, tossing in her sleep, and the figure stood in her doorway, just watching. My pulse roared in my ears. I clicked the third file. This one was different. Daylight, filmed in some kind of cafe. My husband sat at a table across from the tattooed man from the photo. The camera zoomed in just as my husband slid a small envelope across the table. The tattooed man took it without opening it, smiling faintly. Before I could think, I heard it. A soft knock on my locked bedroom door. "Hey, you in there!" It was my husband's voice. But something about the way he said it, flat, almost rehearsed, made my skin crawl. I slammed the laptop shut, yanked out the USB, and shoved it into my pocket. "1 second," I called, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Don't rush," he replied. And then, a pause. The creak of his footsteps retreating down the hallway. I waited until I couldn't hear him anymore. Then I unlocked my phone and typed a single message to the unknown number. "Who are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "I'm the only one trying to keep you alive. Meet me, tonight." I stared at the screen, my breath shaking, alive. The word echoed in my head. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the wind against the window, my husband's slow, steady breathing from the other room. I kept replaying the videos in my head until I wanted to scream. At exactly 1:45 a.m., I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible. My husband didn't stir. I grabbed my hoodie, shoved the USB into my pocket, and crept down the hallway. My daughter's door was cracked open. I peeked inside. She was curled under her blanket, safe. For now. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting my lungs. The street was empty, except for a black sedan idling under the flickering streetlight at the corner. The driver's window slid down halfway. "Get in!" a low voice said. I hesitated, scanning the shadows for anyone else. Then I slid into the passenger seat, the door clicking shut behind me. The man behind the wheel looked nothing like I'd imagined. No ski mask, no trench coat. Just a middle-aged guy with a weathered face, short-cropped hair, and eyes that seemed tired. "You have no idea how close you were tonight," he said quietly, pulling the car away from the curb. "Who are you?" I demanded, clutching the USB in my pocket like a weapon. "My name's Daniel," he said. "I used to work for them. Your husband owes them more than he can ever pay back." He thought he could make it disappear by offering them something else. The words landed like ice in my stomach. Something else? What does that mean? He glanced at me, his jaw tightening. "His debt's big enough that they want leverage. Your daughter." I couldn't breathe. "You're lying." Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed me a crumpled envelope. Inside was a photo. My daughter, walking home from school, her backpack slung over one shoulder. In the corner of the picture, circled in red ink, was a time and date. "Tomorrow. They're planning to take her," Daniel said flatly. "If you stay in that house, they will." The car slowed as we reached a quiet side street. "I can get you both out, but you have to move tonight. No warning him. No packing bags. You leave, and you don't look back." I stared out the window, my mind racing. My whole life, my home, my marriage, was suddenly a trap. "What happens if I don't go with you?" I asked. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. "Then you'll lose her, and you won't get a second chance." The ride back to my street felt like moving through a fog. Daniel parked a block away, killed the headlights, and looked at me. "You've got 10 minutes, he said. "I'll wait here. If you're not back, I'm leaving." I swallowed hard and slipped out of the car. The night felt heavier now, the air thick with the weight of what I was about to do. Every step toward the house felt like a countdown ticking in my head. Inside, everything was silent except for the faint hum of the heater. I tiptoed down the hallway to my daughter's room. She stirred when I touched her shoulder. "Sweetheart, we need to go," I whispered. She rubbed her eyes, confused. "It's the middle of the night." "I know, baby. I'll explain later. Just put on your shoes." I was kneeling to help her when I heard it, the creak of a floorboard behind me. My blood ran cold. "What are you doing?" I turned to see my husband standing in the doorway, his face half in shadow. His eyes flicked to my daughter, then to my clenched fist. I'd forgotten I was still holding the USB drive. "It's not what you think," I said, my voice trembling. "Then what is it?" he asked, stepping into the room. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're taking my daughter and running." "She's not safe here," I snapped, my fear boiling over into anger. "I know about your debt. I know what they're planning." His expression changed. Not surprise, not guilt, but something darker. "You don't understand," he said slowly. "If you take her now, you'll make it worse." My daughter's small hand tightened in mine. "I'm not asking," I said, pulling her toward the door. That's when he moved, fast. His hand clamped around my wrist, twisting hard enough to make me drop the USB. It hit the floor with a tiny clatter. "You're not going anywhere," he said through clenched teeth. From outside, I heard a car engine roar to life. "Daniel." He must have sensed something was wrong. My husband's grip loosened just enough for me to yank free. I grabbed my daughter and bolted for the front door. But before I could reach it, he stepped in front of me, blocking the way. For a second, it felt like time froze. My husband standing between me and the door, my daughter clutching my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin, the USB lying on the carpet like a ticking bomb. Then the sound shattered the moment. A deafening bang on the front door. "Open up!" a voice barked, deep, sharp, and not Daniel's. My husband's face went pale. He turned his head just enough for me to see the panic in his eyes. "You brought them here," he hissed. Before I could answer, the door rattled under another heavy hit. The wood groaned. Then, a crash. The lock gave way. The man who stepped inside was huge, dressed in dark clothes, with a shaved head and cold, assessing eyes. He didn't look at me first. His gaze went straight to my husband. "You have something that belongs to us," the man said, his voice low but carrying an edge that made my stomach twist. Daniel burst through the back door at that exact moment, but he stopped dead when he saw the intruder. "We need to go," he shouted to me, but his eyes never left the man in black. My husband stepped forward, half blocking me and my daughter, half as if he wanted to negotiate. "I just need more time," he said quickly. "I can get it." "No more time," the man interrupted. I realized then, the USB, the drive I had dropped. I glanced at it on the floor. It was close, maybe 3 steps away, but every muscle in my body screamed that if I moved for it, he'd know. The intruder took a slow step toward us. Daniel moved to intercept, but another man entered through the shattered door, this one slimmer, with a knife glinting in his hand. Panic surged in my chest, hot and sharp. My daughter whimpered. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Run! Now!" I didn't think. I grabbed my daughter and bolted toward the back door. Daniel moved to shield us, but I heard the heavy man's footsteps behind me, each one closer than the last. Just as I reached the doorway, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. The grip on my shoulder was like iron, yanking me backward so hard I nearly lost my balance. My daughter screamed, a raw, terrified sound that cut right through me. Before the man could pull me away completely, Daniel slammed into him from the side. The impact was brutal. Both of them crashed into the wall, sending a picture frame shattering to the floor. "Go!" Daniel roared, his voice breaking with urgency. I didn't look back. I clutched my daughter's wrist and pulled her through the back door, our feet pounding against the wooden steps and then the damp grass. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I welcomed it. It meant we were outside. It meant we were one step closer to safety. Behind us, I could hear grunts, furniture toppling, and the sound of fists hitting flesh. Then a gunshot. I froze for half a second, my heart seizing in my chest. "Mom, keep going!" my daughter cried, tugging me forward. We tore across the yard toward the side gate. I shoved it open, and the hinges screamed in protest. As we stumbled into the dark alley beyond, I heard more footsteps, not from the house, but ahead of us. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. It was my husband. His face was streaked with sweat, his shirt torn, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking over my shoulder, at the chaos spilling out of the back door. "Where's the USB?" he demanded. His voice was harsh, frantic. I dropped it," I stammered. His jaw tightened. "Do you understand what you've done?" Before I could answer, Daniel burst into the alley, limping, his face bruised and one arm cradling his side. He wasn't alone. The tall man from the house was right behind him, blood trickling from his lip but eyes locked on us. "Run!" Daniel barked again. And that's when my husband did something I will never forget. He turned, shoved me hard toward Daniel, and said in a low, urgent tone, "If you want her safe, you have to tell her the truth now." Then he stepped toward the intruder, as if ready to sacrifice himself. I barely had time to process his words before Daniel yanked me and my daughter deeper into the alley. But my mind kept replaying that one phrase over and over. The truth now. What truth? And why did I feel like I'd been living in a lie my entire life? We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of town, where an old, flickering streetlight illuminated a rusted bus stop. My daughter clung to me, trembling, while Daniel paced back and forth like a caged animal, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds. I could still hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, but beneath the fear, something else was building. Anger. "Enough," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Daniel, what is going on? What truth was he talking about?" Daniel stopped pacing. His eyes met mine, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked afraid. Not of the men chasing us, but of what he was about to say. "You think your husband married you because he loved you," Daniel began slowly. "But that's not how it started. He was sent to get close to you, to watch you, to make sure you never found out who you really are." I felt my knees go weak. "What are you talking about?" Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. It was old, the edges frayed. He handed it to me. My hands shook as I unfolded it. At first, I thought it was just a picture of my parents, until I realized my father in the photo was not the man who raised me, and standing beside my mother was someone I recognized instantly, the man from the house. "That's your real father," Daniel said softly, "and he's been trying to find you for years. But there are people who don't want that to happen. Dangerous people." I stared at the man in the photo, my mind spinning. "Your husband works for them," Daniel continued. "But tonight, he chose to protect you instead of them. Which means by now, he's probably—" A sharp noise cut through the night, a single gunshot in the distance. My daughter whimpered and buried her face in my side. My throat tightened. Daniel looked away, his jaw tense. "We need to leave. Now. And you need to decide if you want the rest of the truth. Because once I tell you, there's no going back." I gripped the photo so tightly it bent in my hand. My whole life, my marriage, my family, everything I thought I knew, had just been torn apart. But in that moment, one thing became crystal clear. I wasn't going to run anymore. I took a deep breath, turned to Daniel, and said, "Tell me everything." He nodded once, and in the cold, empty night, the real story of my life began.